The rain fell in thin, cold sheets, turning Boston's evening streets into a glistening labyrinth of shadows. Against this grim backdrop, a small figure darted between parked cars. Lucy Miller, 6 years old, her pink raincoat darkened by the downpour, clutched a small backpack to her chest. Her blonde hair clung to her pale face as she glanced over her shoulder, terror widening her eyes. A car engine growled nearby. Headlights swept across the wet pavement. Lucy stumbled, her small sneakers slipping on the slick concrete. She fell hard, scraping her hands on the rough surface. Pain shot through her palms, but she didn't cry. She'd learned not to make noise when scared. The headlights grew closer. Lucy scrambled to her feet, her breathing quick and shallow. She could see the warm glow of the Harvest Moon Café just ahead, its windows fogged with condensation silhouettes of people inside, unaware of her plight. "Bah," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the drumming rain. "Help me!" A tall figure emerged from the shadows, moving toward her with deliberate steps. Lucy froze. 24 hours earlier, the same cafe had been a sanctuary of normalcy, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface of ordinary lives. Jack Sullivan sat alone by the window, watching the world through the steam rising from an untouched cup of coffee. At 58, he carried his age with the quiet dignity of someone who had earned every line on his face. His silver-streaked dark hair was impeccably trimmed, his charcoal suit perfectly tailored. To any casual observer, he was simply another successful businessman taking a moment for himself. They wouldn't notice how his fingers occasionally trembled when he reached for his cup, or how his eyes, deep blue and perpetually tired, kept drifting to the empty chair across from him. 2 weeks ago, that chair had been occupied by Sarah. Now she existed only in the worn photograph he carried in his wallet and the hollow space carved inside his chest. The funeral had been understated, but well attended. Business associates, board members, friends who had gradually become acquaintances as his company grew and consumed more of his life. They had shaken his hand, offered condolences with appropriate gravity, told him how Sarah would be proud of the empire he had built. None of them mentioned how she had died alone in their home while he was closing a deal in Chicago. None of them knew that their last conversation had been an argument about his workaholic tendencies. None of them had heard her final voice message, "Jack, I got the test results. I need you to come home. Please." He hadn't listened to it until his plane landed. By then, she was already gone. Outside the cafe window, people hurried past their lives, untouched by his grief. Jack stared at their reflections, superimposed over his own. Transparent. Insubstantial. Just like him. His phone vibrated. Jack glanced down at the screen, seeing Rebecca Zhao's name. His executive assistant had been handling most of his responsibilities since Sarah's death. She'd sent a simple message. "Marcus called another emergency board meeting. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Should I postpone again?" Jack didn't respond. The coffee in front of him had grown cold, a thin film forming on the surface. He should get back to the office. He should respond to the mounting emails. He should start acting like the CEO of Sullivan Pharmaceuticals again. Instead, he remained motionless, trapped in the gravity of his own failure. The cafe door opened, bringing a rush of cold air and the sound of laughter. A group of students entered, backpacks slung over shoulders, their youth radiating an energy that felt alien to Jack. The barista greeted them with familiar warmth, and several heads turned in Jack's direction, whispers following. He was used to being recognized. His company's breakthrough treatments had made him a figure of note in Boston's business community. Usually he acknowledged such attention with a practiced smile. Today, he couldn't summon the strength to wear the mask. A small figure detached from the crowd. Jack noticed the movement peripherally, but didn't look up until a child's voice broke through his isolation. "Are you okay, mister?" Jack blinked, focusing on the source of the question. A little girl stood beside his table. She couldn't be more than 6, with blonde hair, pulled back in slightly messy pigtails, and eyes the color of a summer storm, gray with flecks of blue. She wore a pink dress that fluttered around her knees and clutched half a chocolate chip cookie in one small hand. For a moment, Jack couldn't speak. The child's direct gaze held neither the reverence of his employees nor the careful sympathy of funeral attendees. She simply waited, head tilted slightly, as if his answer actually mattered. "I'm fine," he said, automatically, the words hollow even to his own ears. The girl's brow furrowed. "You don't look fine. You look sad inside." The observation, so simple and devastatingly accurate, caught Jack off guard. When was the last time anyone had looked past his composed exterior? "Lucy," a woman's voice called from across the cafe. Jack glanced up to see a young woman approaching, apron tied around her waist, blonde hair like her daughter's, but pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her expression held the particular mixture of embarrassment and concern unique to parents whose children have approached strangers. "I'm so sorry," she said, reaching for her daughter's hand. "She doesn't usually—" The woman's voice trailed off as she actually looked at Jack, her eyes widening slightly in recognition. "It's all right," Jack said, his voice steadier than he expected. The little girl, Lucy, looked up at her mother, then back to Jack. With the unfiltered honesty of childhood, she offered her half-eaten cookie. Cookies help when people are sad. That's what Mom says. Despite everything, Jack felt something stir in his chest. A small, rusty mechanism, long unused. Not quite a smile, but a distant relative. "Lucy, honey, let's let the gentleman enjoy his coffee," the woman said gently, tugging her daughter's hand. To Jack she added, "I apologize for the interruption." Jack shook his head. No interruption. As they turned to leave, Jack noticed something that pierced through his fog of grief. A dark bruise encircled the woman's wrist, partially hidden by her sleeve, but visible when she reached for Lucy. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, Jack saw something familiar. The careful composure of someone carrying a burden they didn't want the world to see. Then they were gone, moving back toward the counter. Jack watched as the woman crouched down, speaking softly to her daughter. Her name tag caught the light, Claire. For the first time in 2 weeks, Jack found himself thinking about something other than his own pain. His phone vibrated again. This time he picked it up and typed a reply to Rebecca. "No postponement? I'll be there." Sullivan Pharmaceuticals occupied the top floors of a gleaming tower in downtown Boston, the company logo visible from blocks away. Jack had selected the location personally when they'd outgrown their previous headquarters 5 years ago. Sarah had joked that he'd chosen the tallest building so he could literally look down on their competitors. Now, as the elevator carried him upward, Jack felt none of the pride that usually accompanied his arrival. The memories of building this company from nothing had been overshadowed by the price he'd paid for success. Rebecca met him at the elevator doors, tablet in hand, her efficiency as impeccable as her appearance. At 35, she'd been with him for nearly a decade, rising from administrative assistant to his most trusted lieutenant. "The board is already gathered," she said, falling into step beside him. "Marcus has prepared a presentation on the quarterly projections." She hesitated before adding, "He's also suggesting we discontinue Project Lazarus." Jack stopped walking. "Sarah's project." Rebecca nodded, her expression carefully neutral. "He's framing it as a necessary reallocation of resources." Project Lazarus had been Sarah's passion, a treatment for the rare autoimmune disorder that had ultimately claimed her life. The disease affected fewer than 10,000 people nationwide, making it financially impractical for most pharmaceutical companies. Sarah had convinced Jack to pursue it anyway. "He's making his move," Jack said, more to himself than Rebecca. "It appears so." And they resumed walking, passing through the open concept workspace, where employees pretended not to watch their CEO's return. Jack nodded acknowledgments, but didn't slow his pace. "How bad is it?" he asked quietly. "Marcus has been meeting individually with board members for the past week," Rebecca replied. "He's positioned himself as the steady hand while you've been absent." The boardroom doors loomed ahead. Jack could hear voices inside Marcus's distinctive tenor rising above the others. Rebecca handed him a folder. "Everything you need to know is in here," she said. "And Jack, he's not just after Project Lazarus. He's after your seat." Jack took the folder, straightening his shoulders. "Then let's not keep him waiting." The conversation in the boardroom halted as Jack entered. 8 people sat around the polished table with Marcus Harmon standing at the head, mid-presentation. At 45, Marcus had the hungry look of someone perpetually unsatisfied with his current position. His surprise at seeing Jack quickly transformed into a practiced smile. "Jack, we weren't expecting you. My condolences again for your loss." The insincerity was palpable. Jack nodded acknowledgement and took his seat at the opposite end of the table. "Please continue. I'm interested in hearing your vision for my company." The emphasis on "my" wasn't subtle. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Marcus recovered quickly. As I was explaining, our fourth quarter projections show concerning trends in our core product lines. With increased competition and regulatory hurdles, we need to focus our resources on high return investments. He clicked to the next slide, displaying a chart with Project Lazarus highlighted in red. Which means making difficult decisions about peripheral projects that, while admirable, simply don't justify their expense. Jack kept his expression neutral as Marcus continued detailing the costs of the project versus its potential market. The numbers weren't wrong. Treating rare diseases had never been profitable. That hadn't been the point. When Marcus finally concluded, he looked directly at Jack. In Sarah's absence, we need to be pragmatic. She was driven by personal concerns that, while understandable, can't guide corporate strategy. The room fell silent. Even Marcus seemed to realize he'd crossed a line. Jack remained still, letting the tension build before he finally spoke. Sarah died because we were 6 months too late with a treatment that could have saved her life. His voice was quiet, but carried to every corner of the room. She was patient number 73 in our clinical trial. The first 72 showed a 90% improvement rate. Jack opened the folder Rebecca had given him, removing a document and sliding it across the table. This is my personal investment in Project Lazarus. $5 million. My money, not the company's. The project continues. Marcus stared at the document, his face flushing. Jack, with all due respect, the meeting is adjourned, Jack said, standing. We'll reconvene next week to discuss the quarterly projections in detail. As the board members filed out, Marcus remained, his expression hardening. This isn't over, Jack. The board respects your grief, but they also expect leadership. You can't disappear for weeks, then waltz in and overrule financial reality because of sentimentality. Jack approached him close enough to speak without being overheard. You're right about one thing, Marcus. This isn't over. But if you ever again suggest that my wife's death was a matter of sentimentality, you'll be clearing your office before the day ends. He turned to leave, then paused. And stay away from Project Lazarus. It's not just a treatment anymore. It's a promise. Jack found himself back at the Harvest Moon Café the following afternoon. He told himself it was simply because the coffee was good that it offered a quiet place to think before returning to the apartment that no longer felt like home. But his eyes kept drifting to the counter, searching for the blonde woman and her unusually perceptive daughter. They appeared shortly after 2, Claire in her barista uniform, Lucy trailing behind her with a backpack nearly as large as she was. The girl spotted Jack immediately, her face lighting up with recognition. Before her mother could stop her, Lucy bounded over to his table. "You came back!" she exclaimed, as if his return was the most exciting event of her day. "Are you still sad?" Jack found himself answering honestly. "A little less today?" Lucy nodded sagely. "That's good. Mom says sad gets smaller if you let it breathe." She rummaged in her backpack, pulling out a slightly crumpled piece of paper. "I made this for you." And the drawing showed what appeared to be a man in a dark suit, standing next to a smiling son. Beneath it, in the careful lettering of a child learning to write, was written, "For the sad man." Claire hurried over her expression, mortified. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Sullivan," Jack supplied. "Jack Sullivan. And it's fine, really." Claire's eyes widened slightly at his name. "Mr. Sullivan, I apologize for my daughter's directness. No need to apologize for honesty," Jack said, carefully accepting Lucy's drawing. "Thank you, Lucy. This is very thoughtful." The girl beamed. Claire hesitated, then said, "Lucy, honey, I need to start my shift. Remember the rules." Lucy sighed dramatically. "Stay at the reading table. Don't bother customers. Do my homework first, then drawing." "Perfect." Claire smiled at her daughter before turning back to Jack. "Thank you for your patience with her. She doesn't always recognize boundaries." Something about the way she said it made Jack wonder if there was more to the statement. But Claire was already leading Lucy to a small table in the corner, stocked with children's books and drawing supplies. As they walked away, Jack noticed Claire unconsciously tugging her sleeve down over her wrist. Over the next hour, Jack alternated between reviewing documents on his tablet and observing the cafe's routine. Claire moved efficiently behind the counter, her manner professional but warm with customers. Occasionally, she would glance at Lucy, a quick check that betrayed an underlying anxiety that seemed excessive for a child merely sitting in a cafe. When a rush of customers entered, Claire became visibly tense, struggling to keep up with orders while maintaining her view of Lucy. Jack watched as she accidentally knocked over a stack of cups, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to recover. Without thinking, he stood and approached the counter. "Can I help?" Claire looked up startled. "I'm sorry. You seem overwhelmed. I could watch Lucy for a few minutes, if that would help." The offer clearly surprised her. She hesitated, suspicion and desperation warring in her expression. "That's very kind, but I understand," Jack said, realizing how his suggestion might sound to a protective mother. "Just thought I'd offer." He turned to go, but Claire called after him. "Actually, if you could just make sure she stays at her table while I handle this rush, I'd appreciate it." Jack nodded and moved to a seat with a clear view of Lucy, who was deeply focused on another drawing. For the next 20 minutes, he divided his attention between his tablet and the little girl, who occasionally looked up to wave at him. There was something oddly comforting about the simple task of watching over someone else's child, a purpose that required nothing more than presence. When the rush subsided, Claire approached with a fresh cup of coffee. "Thank you," she said, placing it on his table. "You didn't have to do that." "It was no trouble," Jack replied. He nodded toward Lucy. "She's a good kid." Claire's expression softened. "The best." She seemed about to say more when her phone buzzed. Pulling it from her pocket, she glanced at the screen. The change was immediate and alarming, her face drained of color, her body tensing like a startled deer. "Excuse me," she said, voice suddenly tight. She walked quickly to Lucy, whispered something in her ear, and began gathering their belongings with barely concealed urgency. Jack watched concerned as Claire led Lucy toward the back exit, her movements suggesting someone fleeing rather than simply leaving. As they passed his table, Lucy broke free from her mother's grip and ran back to Jack. "Don't forget your picture," she said, pointing to the drawing still on his table. "Lucy, we need to go," Claire called, voice strained. Jack carefully folded the drawing and placed it in his inside pocket. "I'll keep it safe," he promised Lucy. "Thank you." The girl smiled and rejoined her mother, who cast one final glance around the cafe before hurrying out the back door. Through the window, Jack watched them cross the small parking lot, Claire constantly looking over her shoulder as if expecting pursuit. Something was very wrong. Jack returned to the cafe the next day and the next. Each time he sat at the same table, ordered the same coffee, and waited. But Claire and Lucy didn't return. The baristas wouldn't say much, only that Claire had called in to quit unexpectedly. No explanation, no forwarding contact. On the third day, Jack arrived to find someone cleaning his usual table, a young woman with short blue hair and multiple piercings who introduced herself as Mia. "You're the guy, right?" she asked as she wiped down the surface. "The one Claire's kid kept drawing pictures for," Jack nodded. "Do you know where they went?" Mia shrugged, but her eyes betrayed concern. "Claire doesn't really share personal stuff. Been working here 3 months, and all I know is she's got a kid and works too hard." She glanced around before lowering her voice. "But between us, I think she was scared of someone, always watching the door jumping when men with a certain look came in." Mia straightened up, resuming her professional demeanor. "Anyway, coffee." Jack ordered his usual and sat with his thoughts. The bruises, the nervousness, the sudden departure, it painted a disturbing picture. His phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca about another issue at the office requiring his attention. For once, work could wait. Making a decision, Jack called one of his company's security consultants. "Tom, I need information on someone. First name Claire worked at Harvest Moon Café on Commonwealth Avenue until 3 days ago. Blonde, late 20s, has a daughter named Lucy, about 6 years old." He paused. "And Tom?" "This is personal, not company business. Discretion is essential." 3 hours later, Jack had a name and an address. Claire Miller, 28, single mother. Previously resided in New York until 6 months ago, when she abruptly relocated to Boston. Currently living in a small apartment in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Jack sat in his car across from the building, questioning his own actions. What was he doing? Stalking a woman he barely knew based on a hunch. He was about to start the engine and leave when he saw them. Claire and Lucy exited the building, both looking over their shoulders as they hurried toward a bus stop. Lucy clutched her ever-present backpack while Claire carried a duffel bag that looked hastily packed. They were running again. Without thinking, Jack got out of his car. "Claire," she froze, then pushed Lucy behind her stance, protective. When she recognized Jack, her expression shifted from fear to confusion. "Mr. Sullivan, how did you—" I was worried, he said, simply approaching slowly. After you left so suddenly, are you and Lucy all right? Claire's eyes darted around the street. We're fine, just late for an appointment. The lie was transparent. Lucy peered around her mother, offering Jack a small wave that Claire quickly stopped. You're running from someone, Jack said quietly. Someone who hurt you. Claire's composure cracked, tears forming in her eyes before she blinked them away. Please, we really need to go. Let me help you, Jack said, surprising himself with the intensity of his own words. Whatever trouble you're in, I have resources, connections. You don't even know me, Claire whispered. I know enough, Jack replied. He nodded toward Lucy, and I know she deserves better than living in fear. A car turned onto the street, its engine growling as it slowed near them. Claire's face went pale. We need to go, now. Jack made a split-second decision. My car is right there. Let me drive you wherever you're going. Claire hesitated, weighing unknown dangers against the risk of trusting a virtual stranger. The approaching car made her decision. Okay. Inside Jack's Audi, Lucy bounced on the leather seat while Claire gave directions in a tense voice. Just the bus station, please. Where will you go from there? Jack asked, pulling into traffic. It's better if you don't know. Jack nodded, respecting her caution. The man who hurt you, is he looking for you? Claire's fingers tightened on her bag. Robert Blackwood. I used to live with him in New York. When I left, I took something that belongs to him. Something worth hunting you down for? Yes. She turned to look out the window. I thought we'd be safe here, but he found us. In the rearview mirror, Jack could see Lucy drawing in a small notebook, seemingly oblivious to the adult conversation. But when the car hit a pothole, her sleeve rode up, revealing finger-shaped bruises on her small arm. Jack's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Did he hurt Lucy too? Claire's silence was answer enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Robert isn't Lucy's father. That made her inconvenient to him. Jack made a decision, turning the car away from the direction of the bus station. What are you doing? Claire asked, alarmed. Taking you somewhere safe. The bus station is safe. We have tickets. And when you get where you're going, then what, another temporary apartment, another job where you're always looking over your shoulder? Jack shook his head. You can't run forever. We can't stay here, Claire insisted. Robert has resources, connections. So do I, Jack said simply. He glanced in the mirror at Lucy, who had stopped drawing and was watching the adults with solemn eyes. I promise you, both of you, that I can keep you safe, if you'll let me try. Claire studied him, searching for deception or hidden motives. Why would you do this? You don't know us. Jack was silent for a moment. How could he explain the connection? He felt the strange sense of purpose that had awakened in him since Lucy asked if he was okay, how helping them somehow eased the weight of his failure to be there when Sarah needed him. Because I couldn't save someone I loved, he finally said, but maybe I can help save you. The words hung in the air between them. Claire turned to look at her daughter, then back to Jack. Slowly she nodded. Where are we going? Somewhere no one will think to look for you. Jack's penthouse occupied the top floor of one of Boston's most exclusive buildings, with security that rivaled small embassies. As he ushered Claire and Lucy inside, he was struck by how the space that had felt so empty now seemed cavernous, its minimalist luxury highlighting the contrast between his world and theirs. Lucy, however, was enchanted. Your house is in the sky, she exclaimed, running to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the city. Lucy, don't touch anything, Claire cautioned, still clutching their bags, looking entirely out of place. It's fine, Jack assured her. Make yourselves at home. You'll be safe here while we figure things out. Claire set their bags down carefully. Mr. Sullivan. Jack, please. Jack, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you don't understand who Robert is, what he's capable of. Tell me, Jack said, gesturing for her to sit. Everything. As Lucy explored the apartment under Claire's watchful eye, the story unfolded. Robert Blackwood, 43, a rising investment banker with a public persona of charm and philanthropy. Claire had met him while waitressing at an upscale New York restaurant, swept off her feet by his attention. By the time she saw the man beneath the mask, she was already living in his Upper East Side apartment, financially dependent and isolated from friends and family. The first time he hit me, he brought home jewelry the next day, told me it was his temper, the stress of work, that I needed to be more understanding. Claire's voice was flat rehearsed, as if she'd explained this to herself many times. It's embarrassing how long I believed him. She glanced at Lucy, now contentedly drawing at the dining table. When I got pregnant with Lucy, I thought it would change him, make us a real family. Her laugh was hollow. Instead, he made it clear that my child would never be part of his future plans. Lucy's biological father, a college boyfriend, he's not in the picture. Claire tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture. I stayed with Robert because I thought having some kind of stability was better than nothing. I convinced myself it was for Lucy's sake. Jack remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. Then, about 7 months ago, I found something on his laptop. Files showing money moving through accounts I'd never heard of. Millions of dollars. Claire's eyes met Jack's. Robert was laundering money for clients who needed to hide their wealth. Some of them were people you wouldn't want to be associated with. So you took the evidence and ran. Claire nodded. I copied everything to a USB drive. It was stupid and dangerous, but I was desperate. I needed leverage, something to keep us safe if he came after us. Does he know you have it? He knows I took something, not exactly what or where I keep it. Her expression hardened. That USB drive is the only reason we're still alive. Jack processed this information, understanding now the magnitude of their situation. This wasn't simply an abusive ex-boyfriend. It was someone with resources and dangerous connections who couldn't afford to have his criminal activities exposed. We'll need legal help, he said finally. I know people who can ensure your safety and make proper use of that evidence. Claire shook her head. I've thought about that, but going public means testifying. It means putting Lucy at risk. And running forever doesn't... Before she could answer, Lucy appeared at Claire's side, holding up her latest drawing. It showed 3 figures, a small girl in pink, a woman with yellow hair, and a tall man in dark clothes with what looked like a star on his chest. It's us, she explained, pointing to each figure. You, me, and Mr. Jack. She handed it to Jack solemnly. For your collection. Jack accepted the drawing with the gravity it deserved. Thank you, Lucy. I'll add it to the others. Do you keep all the pictures people give you? Lucy asked. Only the special ones, Jack replied. He reached into his jacket and carefully withdrew his wallet. From inside, he removed Lucy's first drawing, now neatly folded. See, I keep it with me. Lucy beamed, then her expression grew serious. Are you still sad inside? The question caught him off guard just as it had the first time. Jack glanced at Claire, who watched the interaction with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Sometimes, he answered honestly, but right now I'm focused on helping you and your mom. Lucy nodded satisfied and returned to her drawing. Claire studied Jack with new eyes. Your wife? She asked softly. Jack nodded, not trusting his voice. I'm sorry, Claire said. Lucy? She senses things sometimes, feelings people try to hide. It's a rare gift, Jack replied. Being seen. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, a current of understanding passing between them. The moment was broken by the chime of the elevator. Jack tensed, moving instinctively between Claire and the entrance. It's okay, he assured her. No one gets past security without clearance. The elevator doors opened to reveal Rebecca, tablet in hand, as always. She stopped short at the unexpected tableau. Jack, in protective stance, a strange woman and child, watching warily from the living room. I'm sorry, Rebecca said after a beat. I should have called first. Rebecca, Jack acknowledged, relaxing slightly. It's all right, come in. He turned to Claire. This is Rebecca Zhao, my executive assistant. Rebecca, this is Claire and Lucy Miller. They'll be staying here for a while. If Rebecca was surprised by this development, her professional demeanor betrayed nothing. Pleasure to meet you both. Jack, I have those documents you requested about the Boston investment properties. The subtext was clear. She'd brought information about Robert Blackwood. Jack nodded, impressed by her efficiency. Thank you. Let's discuss it in the study. To Claire, he added, make yourselves comfortable. We won't be long. In the privacy of his home office, Rebecca handed him a folder. Robert Blackwood, Harvard Business School senior partner at Ellis & Langford Investment Group. No criminal record, but several complaints of domestic disturbances that were subsequently dropped. Significant political connections, particularly with the current district attorney. Jack scanned the documents, noting the professional headshot of a handsome man with the practiced smile of someone accustomed to charming his way through life. There's more, Rebecca continued. His firm has been courting Sullivan Pharmaceuticals as a potential financial partner. Marcus has met with him twice in the past month. Jack looked up sharply. Marcus knows Blackwood. Apparently quite well. They serve on a charitable foundation board together. The implications were troubling. If Marcus had connections to Blackwood, it complicated an already dangerous situation. Rebecca, I need you to do something discreetly. Find out everything about Marcus's relationship with Blackwood, any communications between them. And increase security at my residence. No visitors without my direct approval. Rebecca nodded, but her expression remained concerned. Jack, who are these people? Are you in some kind of trouble? Jack considered how much to share with his most trusted employee. They're people who need help, the kind of help only someone in my position can provide. This is about Sarah, isn't it? Rebecca asked gently, trying to save someone else because you couldn't save her. The observation struck uncomfortably close to home. Maybe, Jack acknowledged, but that doesn't make it wrong. Rebecca studied him for a moment, then nodded. I'll take care of everything. Just be careful. Whatever you're involved in, it's clearly dangerous. I will. As Rebecca left, Jack remained in his study, staring at Blackwood's photograph. The face of a predator disguised as a respectable businessman. A man who had hurt a child and threatened a woman who only wanted safety. Jack opened his desk drawer, removing Sarah's photograph. Her smile, captured mid-laugh during their anniversary trip to Maine last year, still had the power to both warm and wound him. I couldn't be there when you needed me, he whispered to the image. I was always putting something else first. Building the company, closing the next deal, chasing success that meant nothing without you. He placed Sarah's photo beside Lucy's drawing of the three figures standing together. I won't make that mistake again. Morning light filtered through the penthouse windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Jack stood at the kitchen counter, coffee in hand, watching as Lucy carefully arranged cereal into patterns in her bowl. Claire sat beside her daughter, her posture still carrying the vigilance of someone accustomed to constant threat. Despite the luxurious surroundings, she remained a guest, uncertain of her place. We can't stay here indefinitely, she said quietly, when Lucy became absorbed in her breakfast creation. Robert has connections everywhere. It's just a matter of time before he tracks us down. Jack sipped his coffee. My security team has implemented additional measures. This building has restricted access, and I've added private security to monitor all approaches. You don't understand. Robert finds people. It's what he does. Claire's voice carried the weariness of someone who had run too long. And when he finds us, when he finds you, he'll discover you're no longer alone. Jack's tone was calm, but resolute. Today, I'm meeting with a lawyer I trust, someone with experience in cases involving high-profile individuals. Claire stared into her untouched coffee. I've spoken to lawyers before. They hear Robert's name and suddenly remember other commitments. Not this one. Jack checked his watch. I need to head to the office for a few hours. Will you be all right here? Claire nodded, though her eyes betrayed her unease. We'll be fine. I should call the cafe formally resign. They deserve that much. Use my landline, Jack advised, not your cell phone. After instructing his security team to remain vigilant, Jack left for Sullivan Pharmaceuticals. The familiar routine of the office felt surreal after the events of the previous day. Rebecca met him at the elevator, her efficiency masking her concern. Security protocols have been enhanced at your residence, she reported as they walked toward his office, and I've gathered the information you requested. Inside his office, Rebecca closed the door before continuing. Marcus and Blackwood have known each other for nearly 5 years. They serve on 2 charitable boards together and belong to the same country club. She handed him a tablet. More concerning, they've had 7 meetings in the past month, none of which appear on Marcus's official calendar. Jack scrolled through the information. Any indication what they're discussing? Nothing concrete, but there's this. Rebecca pulled up an email. Marcus requested comprehensive financial reports on Sullivan Pharmaceuticals, including detailed breakdowns of our research investments and cash reserves, specifically Project Lazarus. Jack felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the same sensation he'd experienced when Sarah first received her diagnosis. He's planning something. There's more, Rebecca hesitated. A private investigator visited the office yesterday asking about your recent absences and personal life. The receptionist thought it strange enough to report to me. Description: mid-30s, well-dressed, claimed to be conducting a background check for a charity award. When pressed for credentials, he became evasive and left. Jack considered this development. Blackwood is searching for Claire and Lucy. Now he knows they're connected to me. Jack, Rebecca said carefully. Whatever you're involved in, it's escalating. Perhaps it's time to involve the authorities. Not yet. Jack moved to the window, looking out at the city below. Claire has evidence of financial crimes involving dangerous people. Going to the police now without proper preparation could put her and Lucy at greater risk. He turned back to Rebecca. We need leverage first. Rebecca nodded, understanding. What do you need me to do? Keep monitoring Marcus's communications and clear my schedule for the afternoon. I'm meeting with James Harrington. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. The former prosecutor. The same. And Jack's meeting with James Harrington took place not at the lawyer's prestigious downtown office, but at an unassuming diner in South Boston. At 64, Harrington carried the weathered confidence of someone who had seen the worst of human behavior and chosen to fight it rather than succumb to cynicism. So, Harrington said after Jack outlined the situation, you've taken in a woman and child who are fleeing from a politically connected financial criminal who happens to be in business discussions with your CFO. He shook his head. You never were one for small problems, Jack. Can you help them? Harrington considered the question. The evidence on that USB drive is key. If it contains what she claims, we could approach the SEC or FBI rather than local authorities. Federal charges would make it harder for Blackwood to leverage his connections. And in the meantime, keep them hidden. Blackwood sounds like a man who solves problems permanently. Harrington's expression darkened. I've prosecuted his type before. They believe rules exist for others, not for them. Jack nodded, remembering the bruises on Lucy's small arms. How soon can you meet with Claire? Tomorrow. Bring the evidence and we'll determine next steps. Harrington hesitated before adding, Jack, be careful. Men like Blackwood don't appreciate others interfering with what they consider their property. The warning followed Jack as he returned to the penthouse, his thoughts on Claire and Lucy's safety. When the elevator opened to his apartment, he was greeted by an unexpected sight. Lucy sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by paper, while Claire arranged flowers in a vase. For a moment, the domestic scene seemed so natural that Jack felt like an intruder in his own home. Lucy spotted him first, jumping up with a drawing clutched in her hands. Mr. Jack, look what I made for your office. Jack knelt to examine her artwork, a surprisingly detailed rendering of the Boston skyline with what appeared to be 3 stick figures standing on top of a tall building. It's us, Lucy explained, pointing to each figure, watching over the city like superheroes. Jack smiled, the weight of the day temporarily lifting. It's perfect. I'll put it right on my desk. Claire approached, her earlier tension somewhat eased. We went to the market downstairs. Hope you don't mind that we used your kitchen. The scent of cooking filled the apartment, something homemade and comforting that made the sterile space feel lived in for the first time since Sarah's death. Not at all, Jack replied, suddenly aware of how empty his life had become. It smells wonderful. Later, after Lucy had gone to sleep in the guest bedroom, Jack and Claire sat in the living room, the city lights creating a backdrop of scattered stars below them. Jack explained his meeting with Harrington, outlining the potential path forward. He thinks the evidence could be enough for federal charges. Jack nodded. But he needs to see it first. Claire twisted the sleeve of her sweater, a nervous habit. The USB drive isn't here. I couldn't risk carrying it with me all the time in case Robert caught up to us. Where is it? Hidden at the cafe inside a hollowed-out book in the children's reading section. Lucy's favorite? The Secret Garden. Claire smiled faintly. Robert would never look there. He has no interest in anything Lucy loves. We'll retrieve it tomorrow, Jack assured her, then meet with Harrington. Claire studied him in the dim light. Why are you doing all this? The truth this time. Jack was silent for a long moment. The practiced answers about civic duty or basic decency felt hollow in the face of her direct question. Finally, he spoke. My wife Sarah died 7 weeks ago. An autoimmune disorder that attacked without warning and progressed rapidly. He stared out at the city lights. I was in Chicago closing a deal when she collapsed at home. By the time I got back, she was already in intensive care. She died 3 days later while I was on a conference call I couldn't miss. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and unvarnished. I'm sorry, Claire said softly. Jack continued, needing to speak the truth aloud. We were married for 23 years. The company was our child in a way. We couldn't have children of our own. His voice caught slightly. In the end, I chose the company over her. Not just once, but 1,000 small choices over years. Claire didn't offer platitudes or easy absolution, and Jack was grateful for that. When Lucy asked if I was okay that first day, it was the first time anyone had really seen me since Sarah died. Not the CEO, not the grieving widower putting on a brave face, just me, struggling. Jack turned to face Claire. So to answer your question, I'm doing this because I couldn't save Sarah, but maybe I can help save you and Lucy. Because it matters. Because this time, I can make the right choice. The vulnerability in his admission seemed to break through some final barrier. Claire reached across the space between them, her hand briefly touching his. "Thank you for telling me," she said, "and for helping us when no one else would." The moment was interrupted by Jack's phone. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. "Rebecca? What's wrong?" Her voice was tense. "Jack, someone tried to access the executive floor today, after hours. Security stopped them, but they claimed to be conducting maintenance checks. When pressed for ID, they fled." Description: mid-30s, well-dressed, sound familiar. The same man who had been asking questions earlier. Increased security at the office. No one enters without proper clearance, regardless of the reason. After ending the call, Jack turned to Claire. "Blackwood's people are searching for you. They've connected you to me." Claire's face paled. "I told you he'd find us." "He hasn't found you yet," Jack assured her. "But we need to move quickly. Tomorrow we get the USB drive and meet with Harrington." That night, Jack slept poorly, his dreams filled with shadowy figures pursuing Sarah through endless hospital corridors while he remained frozen, unable to reach her. He woke before dawn, the apartment quiet except for the soft hum of the climate system. He found Claire already awake, standing at the kitchen counter, with a cup of tea, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "I keep thinking about what happens if this doesn't work. If Harrington can't help us, or if Robert finds us first." "We'll make it work," Jack promised, pouring himself coffee. "You can't guarantee that." "No," he acknowledged. "But I can guarantee I won't abandon you and Lucy. Whatever happens, you're not facing it alone anymore." The simple pledge seemed to steady her. They stood side by side, watching the sun climb higher, two people bound by circumstance, yet finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Jack's driver took them to the Harvest Moon Café shortly after opening. The plan was simple. Claire would retrieve the USB drive while Jack waited with Lucy in the car. They would then proceed directly to Harrington's office. "I'll be quick," Claire promised, squeezing Lucy's hand before exiting the car. "Be good for Mr. Jack, honey." Lucy nodded solemnly, clutching her ever-present backpack. As Claire disappeared into the cafe, Jack scanned the street alert for anything suspicious. Lucy hummed quietly beside him, seemingly unconcerned. "My mom is brave," she announced suddenly. Jack glanced at her, struck by the perceptiveness behind those gray-blue eyes. "Yes, she is. She was scared before, but now she's less scared." Lucy tilted her head, considering him. "Because of you." Before Jack could respond, movement caught his attention. A black SUV with tinted windows had pulled up across the street, its engine still running. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. "Lucy," he said calmly, "I need you to stay very still and quiet for a moment." The little girl immediately sensed the change in his demeanor, her humming stopping abruptly. Jack watched as a man exited the SUV, mid-30s, well-dressed, the same description as the individual who had been asking questions. Jack tapped his driver's shoulder. "See that man crossing the street? I believe he's following us. Be ready to leave quickly." Inside the cafe, Claire was taking too long. 5 minutes had stretched to 10, then 15. The man from the SUV had positioned himself near the entrance, pretending to check his phone. Something was wrong. Jack made a decision. "Stay here," he instructed his driver. "Lock the doors. If I'm not back with Claire in 5 minutes, or if anyone approaches the car, drive Lucy directly to James Harrington's office." He provided the address. "Tell him what happened." "Sir, I don't think—" "5 minutes," Jack repeated firmly. To Lucy, he added gently, "I'm going to get your mom. Everything will be fine." Lucy's small hand caught his sleeve. "Be careful of the bad man." Jack nodded, unsettled by her intuition. He exited the car from the side away from the SUV, using parked vehicles as cover to approach the cafe from an angle the watcher wouldn't expect. Through the window, he could see Claire at the reading nook, her movements increasingly frantic as she searched through books. The man from the SUV had noticed Jack's absence from the car and was now moving toward the cafe entrance with purpose. Jack entered through the side door, quickly making his way to Claire. "We need to go," he said quietly. "Now." She looked up, panic in her eyes. "It's gone. The book. Someone moved it." The front door opened, the bell chiming cheerfully as the well-dressed man entered. His eyes scanned the cafe until they locked on Claire, recognition flashing across his face. "There's no time," Jack urged, positioning himself between Claire and the newcomer. "We need to leave." As they moved toward the side exit, the man called out, "Mrs. Blackwood Roberts been worried sick about you." The use of that name stopped Claire in her tracks. Jack took her arm, guiding her forward. "Keep moving." "He just wants to talk," the man continued, advancing toward them. "For Lucy's sake." The mention of her daughter's name snapped Claire out of her momentary freeze. "Stay away from my daughter," she hissed, allowing Jack to lead her out the side door. They hurried toward the car, but two more men had appeared, emerging from the black SUV. Jack's driver had noticed the threat and was already starting the engine. "Run!" Jack commanded, pushing Claire ahead of him. "Get to the car." As Claire sprinted across the street, one of the men moved to intercept her. Without hesitation, Jack tackled him, surprising both the man and himself with the ferocity of his response. They crashed into a newspaper stand, sending papers flying. Jack hadn't been in a physical altercation since his college boxing days, but some instincts remained intact. He landed a solid punch to the man's jaw, buying himself enough time to regain his feet. The second man was now approaching, reaching inside his jacket. Jack didn't wait to see what he was retrieving. He grabbed a fallen newspaper stand and swung it, forcing the man back. Across the street, Claire had reached the car. Jack backed away, keeping his eyes on the two men, then turned and ran for the vehicle. His driver hit the gas the moment Jack's door closed, tires squealing as they pulled away from the curb. "Are you hurt?" Claire asked, checking him for injuries. "I'm fine." Jack turned to Lucy in the back seat. "You okay, sweetheart?" Lucy nodded, her eyes wide but remarkably calm. "Did you beat up the bad men?" Despite everything, Jack found himself smiling. "Let's say I delayed them." Claire slumped against the seat. "The USB is gone. Someone must have found the book. Or Robert knew where to look," Jack suggested. "Either way, we need a new plan." He directed his driver to take a circuitous route, ensuring they weren't followed before heading to Harrington's office. During the drive, Jack called Rebecca, alerting her to the situation and instructing her to implement emergency security protocols at both the office and his residence. Harrington listened gravely as they recounted what had happened. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Without the evidence, our options are limited," he admitted. Claire's testimony alone, especially against someone of Blackwood's standing, would be challenging. "There has to be something we can do," Jack insisted. Harrington considered. "Blackwood seems determined to recover both Claire and Lucy. That suggests he's worried about more than just the USB drive." Claire twisted her hands in her lap. "He's obsessed with control, with appearances. Having his property leave him is unacceptable. There might be a way to use that against him," Harrington mused. "If we can provoke him into making a mistake, creating evidence of his true nature—" "No," Jack interrupted firmly. "We're not using Claire or Lucy as bait." Claire touched his arm. "Jack, if it's our only option—" "It's not." Jack stood pacing the office. "There has to be another way to get evidence. Sarah always kept copies of everything important. She was meticulous that way." Harrington raised an eyebrow. "Sarah, your wife? What does she have to do with this?" Jack stopped pacing, a possibility forming in his mind. What if she knew about Blackwood? What if that's why Marcus is so interested in working with him now? He turned to Claire. "When did you first meet Robert?" "About 3 years ago." "Why?" Jack felt a chill of realization. Sarah was researching investment partners for our expansion into specialized treatments. She would have vetted potential financial backers thoroughly. And if she found something concerning about Blackwood, Rebecca had said Marcus requested financial reports specifically about Project Lazarus, Sarah's project. What if there was more to it? Jack pulled out his phone, calling Rebecca. "I need you to check Sarah's personal files in the secure server. Look for anything related to Robert Blackwood or Ellison Langford Investment Group." While they waited for Rebecca's response, Harrington arranged for Claire and Lucy to be moved to a secure location, a private residence outside the city, used occasionally for witnesses needing protection. "It's not ideal," he explained, "but it will keep you safe while we sort this out." Lucy, who had been quietly drawing in the corner of Harrington's office, approached Jack with her latest creation. It showed what appeared to be a small box hidden inside a larger box. "It's like Russian dolls," she explained. "A secret inside a secret." Jack studied the drawing, struck by the symbolism. "Lucy, what exactly did your mom hide in the book at the cafe?" Claire looked confused. "The USB drive, like I told you." "But was it just the drive, or was it inside something?" Understanding dawned on Claire's face. "I put it inside a small metal mint tin, for protection." Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "The special box with the flowers on it. Mom said it was magic and would keep our secret safe." Jack's phone rang. Rebecca. "I found something," she said without preamble. Sarah had an encrypted folder with research on several investment firms, including Ellis and Langford. Her notes flagged concerns about unexplained capital flows and potential money laundering. Does she mention Blackwood specifically? Yes, she recommended against any partnership due to, quote, ethical concerns and potential regulatory risks. She was particularly worried about their interest in Project Lazarus. Why would they be interested in a treatment for a rare disease? Jack wondered aloud. That's the thing, Rebecca continued. Sarah's notes suggest they weren't interested in the treatment itself, but in the research methodology. Something about repurposing the delivery system for other compounds. The implications were disturbing. Project Lazarus had developed a unique method for delivering targeted treatments directly to specific cell types, a breakthrough that could revolutionize treatment for several diseases. But in the wrong hands, the same technology could be weaponized. She knew, Jack whispered. She knew what they were really after. After ending the call, Jack explained his theory to Harrington and Claire. Marcus wants to sell the technology to Blackwood's clients, people who might have uses for untraceable targeted delivery systems that have nothing to do with medicine. Assassination tools, Harrington concluded grimly, perfectly deniable. Claire shuddered. And Robert's connection to me gave him access to Marcus, a perfect storm. Jack nodded. Now we know why Marcus wants to shut down Project Lazarus and why he's been meeting with Blackwood. They're planning to acquire the research and repurpose it. But without Claire's USB drive, we still lack concrete evidence of Blackwood's criminal activities, Harrington pointed out. Lucy, who had been listening intently, despite the adult conversation, tugged at Claire's sleeve. Mom, did you check your special hiding place? Claire looked confused. What special hiding place, sweetie? In my backpack, the secret pocket you sewed for my special things. Claire's eyes widened. She reached for Lucy's ever-present backpack, turning it inside out, to reveal a hidden compartment carefully sewn into the lining. From it, she extracted a small metal tin with faded flowers painted on the lid. I didn't put it here, she whispered, looking at Lucy in amazement. Lucy shrugged. You were scared when we left home. I saw you put the special box in the book, but the bad man might find it there. So I moved it to my special place. Claire opened the tin with trembling fingers. Inside lay a USB drive innocuous in appearance, but potentially devastating in content. Jack looked at Lucy with newfound respect. You knew all along. The little girl nodded solemnly. Mom said it would keep us safe, so I kept it safe. Harrington leaned forward. May I? When Claire handed him the drive, he continued, I'll have my team analyze this immediately. In the meantime, you three should head to the safe house. It's not safe to return to the penthouse now that Blackwood's people have identified the connection. Jack agreed, though the thought of Claire and Lucy in a remote location without his direct protection made him uneasy. They were about to leave when his phone rang again, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Jack Sullivan. A smooth voice responded, cultured and controlled. We haven't been formally introduced. Robert Blackwood here. Jack signaled to Harrington, who immediately began tracing the call. How did you get this number? Let's just say we have mutual business associates. Blackwood's tone was casual, almost friendly. I believe you've been spending time with my family. I'd like to discuss their return. Claire and Lucy aren't your family, Jack replied evenly, and they're not going anywhere with you. Blackwood's chuckle held no warmth. Claire has always had a flair for drama. I'm sure she's told you quite the tale. But there are two sides to every story, Mr. Sullivan. The bruises on Lucy's arms tell only one story. A brief silence followed. When Blackwood spoke again, the pretense of civility had vanished. You're interfering in matters you don't understand. Claire took something that doesn't belong to her. Return her the child and my property, and this unpleasantness can end. It's over, Blackwood. We have the USB drive, and we know about your arrangement with Marcus Harmon to weaponize Project Lazarus technology. Another pause, longer this time. You're making very serious allegations, Mr. Sullivan, the kind that can damage reputations permanently. Not allegations, evidence, enough to interest federal prosecutors. Blackwood's voice hardened. I've built my life carefully, Mr. Sullivan. I don't respond well to threats. Neither do I, Jack replied, especially when they involve innocent women and children. A negotiated resolution would be better for everyone, particularly for your company. Marcus has shared some concerning information about Sullivan Pharmaceuticals' financial projections. Your board might appreciate a strong investment partner right now. The implied threat was clear: back off or watch your company fall. Stay away from Claire and Lucy, Jack said firmly, and tell your people to stand down. Blackwood's laugh was cold. You've known them what a week I've been in Claire's life for years. What makes you think you have any right to interfere? The moment you put your hands on a child, you lost any claim to rights. Always the white knight, Blackwood mocked, but knights fall Sullivan, and when they do, they fall hard. The call ended abruptly. Jack looked up to find Harrington Claire and Lucy watching him with varying expressions of concern. He's desperate, Harrington noted. That's good for us, but it also makes him dangerous. Claire hugged Lucy close. What happens now? Now, Jack said with newfound resolve. We end this, for good. The safe house was a modest cabin on a wooded property about an hour outside Boston. As the car crunched up the gravel driveway, Jack noted the security features. Cameras disguised as landscape lighting, reinforced doors and windows, clear sight lines in all directions. Inside, the space was simple but comfortable. Lucy immediately claimed a small bedroom with twin beds, declaring that her stuffed animals would love the view of the trees. How long will we need to stay here? Claire asked as they settled in. Just until Harrington's team analyzes the evidence and makes the necessary arrangements with federal authorities, Jack assured her. A few days at most. And then what? Claire's question encompassed more than just the immediate situation. Jack had been asking himself the same thing. In the short time since Lucy had approached his table at the café, his life had changed profoundly. The grief that had consumed him was still present, but alongside it had grown something new, a sense of purpose, of connection. Then you and Lucy can start fresh, he said finally, somewhere safe without looking over your shoulder. Claire studied him. And will you go back to your company, your life before? I don't think I can, Jack admitted. Not exactly the same way. Their conversation was interrupted by Jack's phone, Harrington. We've reviewed the contents of the drive, the lawyer reported. It's even more damning than we expected. Account numbers, transaction records, communications with clients including several individuals already on federal watch lists. Enough for an arrest warrant. More than enough. I've contacted a friend at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're preparing to move on Blackwood, but it will take time to coordinate with local authorities given his connections. How much time? 24 hours minimum, possibly longer. Jack glanced at Claire and Lucy, the weight of responsibility settling more firmly on his shoulders. We'll stay put until then. After ending the call, he explained the situation to Claire. We just need to wait it out. The security here is excellent. Claire nodded, though worry still creased her brow. Robert doesn't give up easily. When he wants something, he doesn't always get what he wants, Jack finished for her. Not this time. As evening approached, they settled into the cabin's simple routine. Jack prepared dinner while Claire helped Lucy unpack. The domesticity of the scene struck him as both foreign and familiar, like a half-remembered dream. After dinner, Lucy insisted on reading a story before bed, pulling a worn copy of The Secret Garden from her backpack, the same title as the book where Claire had hidden the USB drive. Would you read it, Mr. Jack? She asked, her expression hopeful. Jack hesitated. He hadn't read a children's story aloud since, had he ever? But Lucy's expectant face made refusal impossible. He sat on the edge of her bed, the book feeling awkward in his hands. Once upon a time, he began, his voice finding its rhythm as the story unfolded. From the doorway, Claire watched silently, her expression soft in the lamplight. Later, with Lucy asleep, Jack and Claire sat on the cabin's small porch, the night air cool around them. Stars punctuated the darkness overhead, more visible here than in the city's perpetual glow. "You're good with her," Claire observed. Jack smiled faintly. "She makes it easy." "No, she doesn't. Lucy tests everyone. She's been let down by too many people." Claire wrapped her arms around herself against the evening chill. "But she trusts you. That's rare." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the forest around them alive with night sounds. "What will you do?" Jack finally asked. "After this is over?" Claire considered the question. "I never finished college. I was studying nursing before I met Robert. Maybe I could go back finish my degree." "You'd be an excellent nurse. What about you?" she countered. "Will you keep running Sullivan Pharmaceuticals the same way?" Jack looked up at the stars, considering. "No, Sarah always said we built the company to help people, not just make money. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that." He turned to Claire. "I think it's time to refocus on why we started in the first place." Claire's hand found his in the darkness, a gentle pressure of acknowledgement. The simple touch carried more meaning than either could articulate, a connection forged through crisis, but evolving into something deeper. The moment was shattered by Jack's phone vibrating with an incoming call. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. "Jack?" Her voice was urgent. "Marcus called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's moving to have you removed as CEO. On what grounds? Erratic behavior, neglect of duties, emotional instability following Sarah's death. He's gathered support from at least 4 board members." Jack processed this information. He's accelerating his timeline. He knows we have Blackwood's information, and he's trying to secure control of the company before everything falls apart. "What do you want me to do?" "Delay the meeting if you can. I need time for the FBI to move on Blackwood." "I'll try, but Jack," Rebecca hesitated. "If you don't appear tomorrow, Marcus will almost certainly succeed. The board is nervous after your recent absences." After ending the call, Jack explained the situation to Claire. "I need to return to Boston for the board meeting." "Is that safe? Robert's people could be watching your office." "Probably, but if I don't go, I lose the company, and Marcus gets what he wants, control of Project Lazarus and the technology Sarah was trying to protect." Claire stood agitated. "Then I should come with you. The USB drive is evidence against both Robert and Marcus. I should testify about what I saw, what I know." "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. You and Lucy need to stay here where it's safe." "This isn't just your fight anymore," Claire insisted. "It never was. Robert has controlled my life for years. I need to be part of ending that control." Jack recognized the determination in her eyes, the same resolve that had enabled her to escape with Lucy in the first place. "We'll discuss it in the morning," he conceded. "For now, try to get some rest." But rest proved elusive for both of them. Jack spent hours on the phone with Rebecca and Harrington, strategizing for the board meeting and coordinating with federal authorities. When he finally tried to sleep, his mind raced with contingencies and worst-case scenarios. Dawn found him on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise through the trees. The peaceful setting belied the conflict waiting in Boston. Claire joined him, looking as though she'd slept as poorly as he had. "Any news?" she asked. "Harrington's contact at the FBI has the warrant for Blackwood's arrest, but they're waiting for financial crimes specialists to arrive from Washington before moving in. The timing couldn't be worse with the board meeting." Claire sat beside him. "I meant what I said last night. I need to be there, to face Robert, to help end this." Jack studied her, seeing not vulnerability, but strength. The core of steel that had allowed her to protect Lucy against overwhelming odds. "If you testify at the board meeting about Blackwood and Marcus's connection, you'll be putting yourself directly in their path," he warned. "I know, but hiding hasn't solved anything. It's just postponed the inevitable." Her gaze was steady. "Lucy deserves a mother who stands up, not one who keeps running. And Lucy, she can't come to the meeting. Grace, my friend from the Café. She's the only person I still trust in Boston. Lucy could stay with her for a few hours." Jack weighed the options, considering risks and alternatives. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but we do this carefully, and at the first sign of trouble, you leave. No arguments." Claire agreed, relief and apprehension mingling in her expression. As they prepared to leave, Lucy sensed the tension becoming uncharacteristically quiet as she packed her backpack. "Are we running away again?" she asked Claire when Jack stepped outside to speak with the security detail. Claire knelt to her daughter's level. "No, sweetheart, we're not running anymore. We're going to face the bad things so they can't scare us anymore." Lucy considered this, then nodded solemnly. Like in the stories, the brave knight has to fight the dragon to save the kingdom. Claire smiled, smoothing Lucy's hair. Something like that. Is Mr. Jack the brave knight? Claire glanced toward the door where Jack stood, shoulders set with determination, as he gave instructions to the security team. I think, she said softly, we all have to be brave knights sometimes. The drive back to Boston unfolded in tense silence. Jack sat in the front passenger seat, phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with Harrington. Claire occupied the back, her gaze fixed on the passing landscape. The security detail, 2 former military men Harrington had arranged, flanked them in separate vehicles, vigilant for any signs of pursuit. The FBI is ready to move, Harrington informed Jack. They're securing warrants for both Blackwood's residence and offices, but they want to coordinate with the board meeting confrontation. Catching Marcus and Blackwood together strengthens the case. And increases the risk, Jack pointed out. That's why I've arranged for an FBI agent to be present undercover. Agent Diane Foster will pose as your legal counsel. She'll be carrying a concealed weapon and wearing a wire. The plan was coming together, but Jack couldn't shake his unease. Too many variables, too many opportunities for things to go wrong. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Claire, struck by her composed determination. The frightened woman from the café seemed distant now, replaced by someone ready to face her tormentor. They made a brief stop at Grace Williams' apartment to drop off Lucy. Claire's friend, a petite woman with bright eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, embraced Claire fiercely before kneeling to speak with Lucy. We're going to have so much fun, Grace assured the little girl. I've got cookie dough ready for baking and a new puzzle I can't figure out without your help. Lucy nodded, but her solemn eyes found Jack's. You'll keep Mom safe from the bad man. Jack crouched to her level. With everything I have, he promised. Lucy studied him, then removed something from her backpack, a small golden star sticker, identical to the one he'd given her when she fell. For protection, she said, placing it carefully on his suit jacket. The simple gesture threatened to unravel Jack's composure. He cleared his throat. Thank you, Lucy. I'll wear it proudly. As they prepared to leave, Claire knelt to embrace her daughter one final time. I love you so much, she whispered. Be good for Grace. Love you more, Lucy replied with their familiar ritual. Then, unexpectedly, she added, Can Mr. Jack come back with you? I like when he reads stories. Claire's eyes met Jack's over Lucy's head, something unspoken passing between them. We'll see, sweetie. We'll see. Sullivan Pharmaceuticals loomed against the morning sky, its glass facade reflecting clouds and sunlight. Jack had always felt a surge of pride upon approaching the building. Today, he felt only resolution. Rebecca waited in the underground parking garage, tablet in hand, her usual efficiency masking her concern. The board members are assembling now. Marcus has been closeted with them individually all morning. And Blackwood? No sign of him yet, but security reports a car matching the description of the SUV from yesterday, circling the block. Jack nodded. He'll be here. He can't afford to let Marcus handle this alone now. They were joined by Agent Foster, a sharp-featured woman whose austere suit and glasses completed the image of a corporate attorney. Her handshake was firm, her assessment of Jack and Claire swift and professional. Remember, she advised, our goal is to get both Marcus and Blackwood on record. Let them incriminate themselves. Don't confront them directly about the money laundering or the USB drive until I give the signal. The elevator ride to the executive floor passed in taut silence. Claire stood beside Jack, her posture straight, betraying none of the fear she must be feeling. Jack found himself drawing strength from her courage. The boardroom doors loomed ahead. Jack paused, turning to Claire. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Claire met his gaze. Yes, I do. With a nod to Rebecca and Agent Foster, Jack pushed open the doors. The conversation inside ceased abruptly. 8 board members sat around the polished table, expressions ranging from surprise to discomfort, to carefully concealed triumph in Marcus's case. The CFO stood at the head of the table, presentation materials arrayed before him. Jack, Marcus recovered quickly, a practiced smile sliding into place. We weren't expecting you. Evidently, Jack replied, mildly taking in the room, though I find it curious that a meeting to discuss my leadership would proceed without me. Several board members had the grace to look embarrassed. Marcus's smile tightened imperceptibly. We were simply reviewing the company's recent performance before addressing the concerns that have been raised. His gaze shifted to Claire, standing slightly behind Jack. I don't believe we've been introduced to your guest. Claire Miller, Jack said, gesturing her forward. She has some information relevant to today's discussion. Claire stepped forward, her voice steady. Some of you may know Robert Blackwood of Ellis & Langford. I believe he's been discussed as a potential investment partner for this company. The board members exchanged glances, confusion evident. Marcus's expression hardened. Ms. Miller, while I'm sure your insights are valuable, this is a closed board meeting discussing sensitive corporate matters. Robert Blackwood is engaged in systematic money laundering for several dangerous organizations, Claire continued as if Marcus hadn't spoken. He's using legitimate businesses, including investment opportunities like your Project Lazarus, to clean illegal funds. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. Marcus's face flushed. These are serious allegations without any foundation. Jack, I must insist. The boardroom door opened again. Robert Blackwood stood framed in the entrance, impeccably dressed, in a charcoal suit, his handsome features arranged in an expression of polite confusion. He radiated the easy confidence of a man accustomed to controlling every room he entered. I apologize for the interruption, he said smoothly. I had an appointment with Marcus, but perhaps I've arrived at an inopportune moment. Claire went very still. Jack moved subtly closer to her, a silent promise of protection. Actually, Jack replied, your timing is perfect, Mr. Blackwood. We were just discussing your business proposal and some concerns that have been raised about it. Blackwood's eyes found Claire a flash of something dark crossing his features before his mask of civility reasserted itself. Claire, what a surprise to see you here. Hello, Robert, she said, her voice remarkably steady, despite the slight tremor in her hands. Blackwood turned to address the board. I should explain. Claire is my partner's former girlfriend. There was an unfortunate misunderstanding when she left our home rather abruptly with her daughter. His sympathetic smile didn't reach his eyes. We've been quite concerned for their welfare. That's not true, Claire said firmly. Robert and I lived together for 3 years. When I discovered evidence of his illegal activities, he threatened me and my daughter. Blackwood's laugh was carefully calibrated to convey amused disbelief. I think we can all appreciate that domestic disputes can lead to exaggerated claims. He glanced at Marcus, a silent communication passing between them. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in private. I think not, Jack interjected. The board should hear everything given that you're proposing a significant investment in our company. Marcus stepped forward. This is precisely the kind of erratic behavior I've been concerned about, Jack. Bringing personal drama into a board meeting, making unfounded accusations against a respected financial partner. Not unfounded. Agent Foster spoke for the first time, removing her glasses. Robert Blackwood, I'm Agent Diane Foster with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We have evidence linking you to multiple instances of money laundering and fraud. The room erupted in confusion. Blackwood's composure slipped momentarily before he regained control. This is absurd, he said dismissively. I don't know what game you're playing, Sullivan, but dragging federal agents into a corporate disagreement crosses a line. It's not a game, Claire said, her voice stronger now. I have copies of your transaction records, Robert. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the communications with clients, everything. For the first time, genuine alarm flashed across Blackwood's face. Marcus, sensing the shifting tide, attempted to salvage the situation. Even if there were concerns about Mr. Blackwood's business practices, which I'm certain are unfounded, they have no bearing on the legitimate leadership issues facing Sullivan Pharmaceuticals. He addressed the board directly. Jack has been increasingly absent making impulsive decisions, allowing personal matters to interfere with corporate governance. Personal matters like discovering that my CFO was conspiring to sell proprietary medical technology to criminal organizations, Jack interrupted. Marcus blanched. That's preposterous. Is it? Jack nodded to Rebecca, who distributed folders to each board member. These are records of communications between Marcus and Robert Blackwood, discussing how the cellular delivery system developed for Project Lazarus could be repurposed for other applications. Applications my late wife, Sarah Sullivan, specifically warned against in her final research notes. The board members flipped through the documents with growing concern. One of them, Dr. Eleanor Chen, looked up sharply. Is this accurate, Marcus? You were planning to repurpose Sarah's technology without board approval. Marcus's confident facade began to crumble. The applications were purely theoretical. We were simply exploring potential markets. Markets like targeted assassination tools, Jack pressed, untraceable delivery systems for chemical agents. Blackwood, watching his carefully constructed plan disintegrate, made a swift calculation. He stepped toward the door. This meeting has clearly devolved into baseless accusations. I'll have my attorneys contact you all directly. Please remain where you are, Mr. Blackwood, Agent Foster said, producing her badge. Federal agents are currently executing search warrants at your residence and offices. I'm authorized to detain you pending formal charges. Blackwood's eyes darted to Marcus, then to Claire, his expression hardening into something ugly and raw. In that moment, the polished veneer fell away, completely revealing the predator beneath. "You stupid bitch," he snarled at Claire. "You have no idea what you've done." He lunged toward her with startling speed. Jack reacted instantly, placing himself between them. Blackwood's momentum carried them both backward, colliding with the boardroom table. Pain exploded across Jack's ribs as Blackwood landed a vicious blow. Agent Foster drew her weapon. "Federal Agent freeze!" Blackwood ignored the command, his focus entirely on reaching Claire. Jack drove his fist into Blackwood's solar plexus, momentarily halting his advance. Board members scattered, some diving beneath the table, others pressing against the walls. In the chaos, Marcus seized his opportunity. He grabbed Rebecca's tablet and bolted for the door. "Marcus is running," Rebecca shouted. Agent Foster faced a split-second decision: detain Blackwood or pursue Marcus. Before she could act, Claire made the choice for her, grabbing a heavy crystal award from a nearby shelf and bringing it down on Blackwood's shoulder with all her strength. The impact staggered him, buying Jack precious seconds to regain his footing. He tackled Blackwood, driving him to the floor with a force that surprised even himself. "Go after Marcus," Jack called to Agent Foster. She hesitated only briefly before pursuing the fleeing CFO. Jack pinned Blackwood to the ground, restraining his arms. The man struggled beneath him, rage contorting his features into something barely human. "You're finished," Jack told him, voice cold and certain. "The evidence is already with the FBI. Your accounts are being frozen as we speak." Blackwood's struggle subsided, replaced by a chilling laugh. "You think this ends here? Do you have any idea who my clients are? What they'll do when they discover their money is compromised?" "That's not my concern," Jack replied. "My only concern was making sure you never hurt Claire or Lucy again." At the mention of Lucy's name, Blackwood's expression shifted, a malicious smile spreading across his face. "Lucy, sweet little Lucy." His voice dropped to a whisper, meant only for Jack. "Did Claire tell you I have someone watching her friend's apartment right now, just in case things went poorly today?" Jack's blood ran cold. "You're lying." "Am I? Make a call. See if anyone answers." Claire, who had been helping Rebecca secure the boardroom doors, turned at Jack's sudden stillness. "What is it? What did he say?" Jack met her gaze, the fear in his eyes telling her everything she needed to know. "Lucy," she whispered, already reaching for her phone. Her call to Grace went unanswered. So did the second and the third. "We need to go. Now." Jack hauled Blackwood to his feet, securing his hands behind his back with a zip tie from Agent Foster's discarded briefcase. "Rebecca, tell Agent Foster where we've gone. Have her send backup to Grace Williams' apartment immediately." The drive to Grace's apartment was the longest 20 minutes of Jack's life. Claire sat beside him repeatedly, calling Grace's number, each unanswered ring ratcheting her fear higher. "She always answers," Claire said, her voice tight with panic. "Always." Jack pushed the car faster, weaving through traffic with a recklessness born of desperation. "We'll get there in time." The security detail followed close behind, ready for whatever awaited them. Grace's apartment was located in a modest building near the university where she took night classes. As they approached, Jack scanned the street for anything suspicious. Parked cars with occupants, unfamiliar figures lingering near entrances. Nothing seemed immediately amiss until Claire pointed to a window on the third floor. "That's Grace's apartment. The curtains are drawn. She never closes them during the day." Jack parked haphazardly, instructing the security team to cover the building's rear exit. He and Claire approached the front entrance with caution, adrenaline sharpening their senses. The building's security was minimal, a simple intercom system that someone had recently forced open. Jack pushed the damaged door, exchanging a grim look with Claire as it swung inward. They took the stairs rather than the elevator, moving as quickly and quietly as possible. On the third floor, they paused outside Grace's apartment, listening for any sound within. Silence. Jack knocked, announcing himself clearly. "Grace, it's Jack Sullivan. Is everything all right?" No response. Claire tried next, her voice strained with fear. "Grace, it's Claire. Please open the door." When no answer came, Jack made a decision. He tested the doorknob, unlocked. Another bad sign. "Stay behind me," he instructed Claire. He pushed the door open slowly, scanning the entryway before proceeding. The apartment was unnaturally quiet living room, empty drawn curtains, casting the space in shadowy gloom. "Grace," Claire called, fear threading through her voice. "Lucy." A muffled thump came from somewhere deeper in the apartment. Jack motioned for Claire to stay back as he moved cautiously toward the sound. It had come from behind a closed door at the end of the hallway, a closet or pantry. Jack approached, carefully aware that it could be a trap. He reached for the doorknob, prepared for anything. The door swung open to reveal Grace and Lucy, bound and gagged, but very much alive. Grace's eye was swollen, evidence of a struggle, but Lucy appeared physically unharmed, her eyes widening with relief at the sight of Jack. Claire rushed forward with a strangled cry, dropping to her knees before Lucy and carefully removing the gag. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" Lucy shook her head, tears streaming down her face as Claire worked to untie her. "The bad man came, but Grace fought him. Then they put us in here." Jack freed Grace, who gasped for air, massaging her wrists where the restraints had cut into her skin. "One man," she managed between breaths, "said he'd kill Lucy if I screamed. He was looking for something, kept demanding to know where the real evidence was." "When did he leave?" Jack asked, urgently aware they might still be in danger. "Just before you arrived. He got a phone call, then left in a hurry. Said someone would be back." Jack helped Grace to her feet. "We need to move now. It's not safe here." They hurried from the apartment, Jack leading the way, while Claire carried Lucy, who clung to her mother with desperate strength. In the stairwell, Jack called Harrington, quickly explaining the situation. "Agent Foster has Marcus in custody," Harrington informed him. "But Blackwood escaped during the confusion. They've issued an alert, but he's in the wind." "He'll be coming for Claire and Lucy," Jack said grimly. "He knows the evidence is already with the authorities. This is personal now. Bring them to my office. I'll have additional security waiting." As they reached the ground floor, Jack's security detail reported the area clear, but he remained vigilant. Blackwood was cornered and desperate, the most dangerous combination possible. They were halfway to the cars when Jack spotted it, a black SUV with tinted windows turning onto the street. The same vehicle from the Café confrontation. "Run!" he urged, pushing Claire and Lucy toward the nearest security vehicle. "Get them out of here," he instructed the guard. "Take them directly to Harrington's office. Don't stop for anything." "Jack, no," Claire protested as the guard ushered her and Lucy into the car. "Go!" Jack insisted, already turning to face the approaching threat. "I'll be right behind you." The security vehicle pulled away just as the SUV screeched to a halt. Two men emerged, the same ones from the Café, followed by Blackwood himself, his expensive suit disheveled, his face contorted with rage. Jack stood his ground, positioning himself between Blackwood and the departing vehicle, carrying Claire and Lucy. "It's over, Blackwood," he called. "Federal agents are already on their way." Blackwood laughed, the sound unhinged. "Nothing's over until I say it is. Where are they, Sullivan? Where's my property?" "They were never your property," Jack replied evenly, "and you'll never touch them again." The two men flanking Blackwood moved forward menacingly. Jack's remaining security guard stepped up beside him, hand inside his jacket, where his weapon was holstered. "You think you've won," Blackwood snarled. "You've destroyed everything I built. 15 years of work gone because of a waitress and her brat. Because of you." Jack recognized the dangerous gleam in Blackwood's eyes, a man with nothing left to lose. "Your clients will be looking for someone to blame," Jack said, buying time as sirens became audible in the distance. "I'd be more worried about them than about Claire." Something shifted in Blackwood's expression, calculation replacing blind rage. "You're right about one thing, Sullivan. I do need to cut my losses." His hand emerged from his jacket holding a small pistol. "Starting with you." The security guard reached for his own weapon, but Blackwood was faster. The shot cracked through the air, striking the guard in the shoulder. He collapsed with a grunt of pain. Jack dove for cover behind a parked car as a second shot shattered the window above him. Glass rained down, slicing his cheek. He heard Blackwood's footsteps approaching, unhurried, now confident. "You know what I realized, Sullivan?" Blackwood called. "We're not so different, you and I. Both self-made men, both willing to do whatever it takes to protect what's ours." His voice grew closer. "The only difference is, I'm honest about who I am." Jack remained silent, calculating his options. The sirens were growing louder, but help wouldn't arrive in time. He needed to keep Blackwood talking. "We're nothing alike," he replied, shifting position carefully. "You hurt those weaker than you. You threatened a child." Blackwood laughed. "Such moral superiority. Tell me, how many lives has your company destroyed with unaffordable medications? How many people died while you were flying private and building penthouse apartments?" The accusation struck uncomfortably close to truths Jack had been confronting since Sarah's death. But now wasn't the time for self-reflection. "At least I'm trying to change," he said, locating a heavy wrench that had fallen from a nearby maintenance vehicle. "You're just running away from what you've done." "I'm adapting," Blackwood corrected now, just on the other side of the car. "Something you clearly never learned to do." When he rounded the vehicle, gun raised, expecting to find Jack cowering. Instead, Jack surged upward, swinging the wrench with all his strength. It connected with Blackwood's wrist, sending the gun clattering across the pavement. Blackwood howled in pain, but recovered quickly, lunging at Jack with the ferocity of a cornered animal. They crashed to the ground, Blackwood's hands finding Jack's throat, squeezing with murderous intent. "I'm going to kill you," he hissed, face inches from Jack's. "Then I'm going to find them, and when I do..." The threat ignited something primal in Jack. With a surge of strength he didn't know he possessed, he broke Blackwood's grip and rolled, reversing their positions. His fist connected with Blackwood's jaw, once, twice, 3 times before he regained control of himself. Blackwood lay stunned beneath him, blood trickling from his split lip. Jack stood retrieving the fallen gun and training it on Blackwood's prone form. "It's over," he said again, his voice hoarse from the assault on his throat. "You've lost." Blackwood's laughter bubbled through the blood in his mouth, disturbing in its genuine amusement. "Look at you, the righteous CEO with a gun in his hand." He propped himself up on his elbows. "Go ahead, Sullivan. Pull the trigger. Prove you're just like me after all." For a moment, one terrible clarifying moment, Jack wanted to. His finger tightened on the trigger, the weight of all Blackwood had done, all he had threatened to do, pressing down like a physical force. Then he thought of Lucy's solemn eyes when she'd placed the star sticker on his jacket. "For protection," she'd said, "not for vengeance." Jack lowered the gun. "No, I'm nothing like you." Police cars swarmed the street officers, emerging with weapons drawn, shouting commands. Jack placed the gun on the ground and raised his hands, identifying himself clearly. In the chaos that followed as Blackwood and his men were taken into custody and paramedics attended to the wounded security guard, Jack had only one thought. Claire and Lucy, were they safe? His answer came an hour later at Harrington's office, where Claire rushed to embrace him the moment he entered. Lucy wasn't far behind, wrapping her arms around his legs with fierce determination. "We thought..." Claire couldn't finish the sentence, her relief too overwhelming. Jack held them both, the aches and cuts from his confrontation with Blackwood forgotten in the simple miracle of their safety. "It's done," he assured them. "Really done this time." Harrington approached, his expression grave but satisfied. "Blackwood is in federal custody. No bail given the flight risk. The evidence from the USB drive, combined with what they found in the raids, ensures he'll be facing charges that will keep him imprisoned for decades." "And Marcus?" Jack asked. "Singing like a virtuoso, hoping for leniency. He's implicated several board members in the scheme to oust you and sell the technology." Jack nodded, processing this information. The company he'd built with Sarah would need substantial rebuilding, new leadership, renewed focus on their original mission. Lucy tugged at his sleeve, drawing his attention downward. "You kept your promise," she said solemnly. "You protected us from the bad man." Jack crouched to her level, wincing slightly at the pain in his ribs. "We protected each other," he corrected gently. "That's what families do." The word hung in the air between them, unplanned, but undeniably right. Claire's hand found his shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of everything that had changed in the space of a week. 3 days later, Jack stood at the podium in Sullivan Pharmaceuticals' main auditorium, addressing the assembled employees. The story had made national news: the attempted corporate takeover, the money laundering scheme, the dramatic confrontation. But the personal story, the one that mattered most to Jack, remained private. Sullivan Pharmaceuticals was founded with a simple mission, he began, to improve lives through innovative medicine. Somewhere along the way, that mission became secondary to profit margins and market share. His gaze swept the room, seeing both familiar faces and new ones. Today, we return to our foundations. He outlined his vision for the company's future: expanded research into rare diseases, more accessible pricing structures, ethical investment partnerships. The Project Lazarus treatment, now in final development, would be Sarah's legacy to the thousands suffering from the disease that took her life. As he concluded his remarks to enthusiastic applause, Jack's eyes found Claire and Lucy sitting in the front row. Claire wore a new confidence, her posture no longer carrying the vigilance of someone expecting attack. Lucy beamed up at him, pride evident in her expression. They had moved into Jack's penthouse temporarily while they figured out next steps. The apartment that had once felt cavernous in its emptiness now resonated with Lucy's laughter and Claire's quiet presence. Jack found himself lingering at home rather than rushing to the office, savoring breakfasts together and bedtime stories that had become a nightly ritual. After the presentation, as employees dispersed to their departments, Rebecca approached with a tablet in hand. "The board approved all your proposals," she reported, "and the news about the treatment breakthrough has already boosted our stock price by 12%. Jack nodded, only half listening, as his gaze remained on Claire and Lucy. Rebecca followed his line of sight, a knowing smile touching her lips. "They're good for you," she observed. "I haven't seen you this alive since Sarah," Jack finished for her. "I know. She would approve, you know, of all of this." Jack considered this, remembering Sarah's final message that he'd been too busy to answer. She always saw more clearly than I did. What mattered, what didn't. Rebecca squeezed his arm gently before leaving him to join Claire and Lucy. "That was amazing," Claire said as he approached. "You're really changing things." "We're changing things," Jack corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Lucy tugged at his hand. "Can we go to the special place now? You promised." Jack smiled. "Yes, we can go to the special place now." The special place was a construction site across town, the future home of the Sarah Sullivan Center for Childhood Wellness. Jack had purchased the property the day after Blackwood's arrest, channeling his personal funds into creating a sanctuary for children recovering from trauma and abuse. A place where kids like Lucy could heal, could learn to trust again. As they walked the perimeter of the site, Jack described his vision to Claire: therapy spaces, art rooms, gardens where children could reconnect with simple joys. "It's wonderful," Claire said, watching Lucy examine the architectural renderings with serious attention. "A perfect tribute to Sarah." "And to Lucy," Jack added quietly. "She showed me what really matters." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lucy arrange small stones in patterns along the property line, creating order from chaos as she did so naturally. "I've been thinking," Claire said finally, "about what comes next for us." Jack tensed involuntarily. He'd been avoiding this conversation, knowing that Claire and Lucy would eventually want to build their own lives independent of the crisis that had brought them together. "You've done so much for us," Claire continued, "given us safety, stability, the chance to start over." She looked up at him, her eyes clear and direct. "But I don't want to just start over. I want to build something new, something better." Jack nodded, preparing himself for their departure. "Whatever you need, financial support, recommendations for schools for Lucy, a place to live." Claire placed her hand on his arm, stopping his well-intentioned offers. "Jack, I'm not talking about leaving, unless that's what you want." He stared at her, hope and uncertainty warring within him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Lucy and I have found something we never expected. A home. With you." Her voice softened. "If you want us to stay." The world seemed to still around them, the construction sounds fading as Jack processed her words. In the space of 2 weeks, his carefully ordered existence had been completely upended, and he had never felt more alive, more purposeful. "I want you to stay," he said simply. "Both of you. For as long as you want." Claire's smile held the promise of 1,000 tomorrows. "That might be a very long time." "I'm counting on it." Lucy approached, stone in hand, her expression triumphant. "I made something," she announced, pointing to the pattern she'd created. 3 stones arranged in a triangle with smaller pebbles connecting them. It's us, together. Jack knelt beside her creation, recognizing the simple, profound truth in it. 3 separate lives now interconnected in ways none of them could have imagined when Lucy first approached his table at the cafe. "It's perfect," he told her. Lucy studied him with those perceptive eyes. "Are you still sad inside?" Jack considered the question carefully, as he had the first time she'd asked it. The grief for Sarah remained a quiet companion he would always carry, but alongside it now flourished something new: purpose, connection, family. "Not as much," he answered honestly. "Not anymore." Lucy nodded, satisfied. "That's good. Mom says everyone gets sad sometimes, but nobody should be sad alone." "Wise words," Jack agreed, glancing up at Claire. She extended her hands to both of them, ready to go home. As they walked back to the car, Lucy between them, Jack reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. A chance encounter in a cafe, a child's simple question, a woman's courage to start anew. The world was full of dangers, men like Blackwood systems that prioritize profit over people, the constant temptation to choose the expedient over the right. But it was also full of possibilities for redemption, for second chances, for building something meaningful from the ashes of loss. Jack Sullivan, once defined by his company and his grief, had found a new definition, not in the buildings that bore his name or the treatments his research developed, but in the small hand clasped trustingly in his own, in the promise he'd made and kept, in the family he'd never expected to find. As they reached the car, Lucy looked up at the sky, now streaked with sunset colors. "Look," she said, pointing to the first evening star appearing above the horizon, "like my sticker, for protection." Jack and Claire followed her gaze, their eyes meeting above her head. No words were needed to express the understanding that passed between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The last man standing had found his reason to stand not alone in defiance, but alongside those who had taught him what truly mattered. Together they drove toward home, leaving behind the shadows of the past and moving into the light of a future none of them could have imagined. Just 2 weeks before, when a little girl had approached a lonely man and asked, "Are you okay, mister?" Now finally he was. 6 months after Blackwood's arrest, Jack received a call that shattered the peace they'd carefully constructed. Blackwood had escaped during a prison transfer, leaving 2 guards dead. The FBI believed he had help from former clients with resources beyond their jurisdiction. That evening, as Jack, Claire, and Lucy returned to the penthouse after dinner, Jack sensed something wrong immediately. The security guard's absence from his post, the subtle displacement of items in the foyer details most would miss. But Jack's dormant military training from his classified years in special operations kicked in like muscle memory. "Take Lucy to the panic room," he whispered to Claire, pressing the hidden elevator button Sarah had insisted on installing years ago. "Now!" They'd barely moved when Blackwood emerged from the shadows, a gun trained on them, flanked by 2 men. "Family dinner, how touching," he sneered. "This is between us," Jack said deliberately, positioning himself to shield Claire and Lucy. "It became about them the moment she stole from me," Blackwood replied, his once polished veneer completely eroded by prison and desperation. As Blackwood monologued about revenge, Claire caught Jack's eye. Behind them, Lucy was quietly opening her backpack, retrieving something. The silent communication between the 3 of them required no words. Months of building trust had created an unspoken bond. When Jack suddenly dropped to one knee, Blackwood hesitated, confused by the unexpected movement. That split second was all they needed. Claire threw the vase from the entry table, forcing Blackwood to dodge as Jack executed a perfect combat roll, closing the distance between them. Lucy hit the emergency alarm button she'd pulled from her bag, the special star button Jack had given her with direct connection to building security and authorities. The ensuing struggle was brutal and swift. Jack disarmed Blackwood with a technique he hadn't used in 15 years, while Claire grabbed a decorative oar from the wall, swinging it with precision at one of Blackwood's men. Lucy, small but determined, kicked the second man hard in the shin, causing him to stumble forward into Jack's waiting fist. When authorities arrived minutes later, they found Blackwood restrained with his own belt, his men subdued, and the Sullivan family, because that's what they had become, standing together, shaken but unbroken. "How did you know what to do?" Claire asked Jack later after Lucy had finally fallen asleep between them on the couch. Jack smiled faintly. There are parts of my past I never shared with anyone, not even Sarah. Special Forces wasn't just a career, it was classified. Claire nodded, understanding at last the depths beneath his composed exterior. Will we ever be completely safe? Yes, Jack said with quiet certainty, his hand finding hers. Because we've learned the most important lesson. What's that? She asked. That we're strongest when we stand together.